going on, everybody? We're back again, so we didn't lie to you. We'll be back tomorrow. We're here. What's going on? Isaiah, first one in the chat. What's good, man? Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Ron, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. The season is here, at least the content season. So your boy had to get to bed early last night so we could be up to do the show, but we're here. We got plenty to talk about today.
I envy you. So hard to fall asleep that early, but we're in here. What's going on, Doug? Got a good show for y'all today, but let's do some house cleaning a little bit. Let's not forget we're on podcast now. We're on Spotify, so make sure you get over there, leave a 5-star review, ask some questions for us. We'll be able to answer those for you and get that going. So we got that going on. We got a good show today. We're going to talk some Big Ten Media Days. We're going to talk some recruiting, some interesting stuff. Ron, you got anything before we jump into it?
No, let's get right to it.
All right. So this is Ron's favorite time of year when we get to listen to coaches talk and react to their line. So I pulled some interesting ones. Hopefully these are good enough to keep your excitement going. So we'll start with Ryan Day at Big Ten Media Days. Did you watch any Big Ten Media Days at all?
No, barely any. I saw clips online, but Chris and Zach talked about this on their show the other day about we used to watch last year. Anyone that watched the show, we were dialed in to all of the player and coaches interviews, and we got about 4 or 5 weeks into the season. We're like, yeah, we got to scrap that interview day because Ryan Day just gets up there and lies and doesn't say anything. And I mean, if you gotta do what you gotta do to protect your program and let out what you feel is comfortable. But I mean, we rarely glean anything from Ryan Day press conferences, and when you do, you're like, well, what's the motive behind saying that?
Yeah, I remember on Twitter, Ryan Day came out and he talked about Brandon Hennis and Cardell Tate. And he was like, those guys deserve to be on the field. And Seaball tweeted out, which means they ain't. We would never see them because he's come out and said it. So too funny. So Ryan Day. Well, I think the most famous thing in Big Ten Media again was a UCLA coach. So they're still missing Chip over there as far as the public speaking those. But let's start with Ryan Day here. So talk to Ryan Day for Big Ten Medias, and he started with, "It's been a great summer." Is what he said. The team has been working hard, got that urgency, and they've been working with a purpose. Ron, you talked about this yesterday, and obviously they feel it around the locker room. There's a sense of urgency with this team.
Absolutely. I feel like, I mean, if there's not, you need to get out of the building. we said on the show a couple times, I wish Ryan Day could see our mentions, because if his mentions looked anything like ours, there would be a sense of urgency around the program. You've lost to Michigan 3 years in a row. You just watched your ops win a national title. I don't know how it couldn't be any more urgent around the facility, but I'm glad to hear that at least there's an understanding of the urgency, because I know every fan out there, every donor, every student, and all the alumni, they feel the urgency because they're sick of hearing that team up north flap their gums for the past couple of years, and now even worse, they have a natty to back it up.
Now, I do want to ask. I know you are a common fixture at Ohio State practices, especially in spring ball. I mean, you go there every day. You're inside I think you got a key card. You just walk inside the Woody. You walk inside the Woody, grab breakfast sometimes, on your way to work. So I want to ask, did you feel that at all? You were around the program, you were around the coaches. Did you feel any sort of difference than you've seen? Like, just gauging how you've seen them in the past, did you feel like, oh, okay, they're actually putting some work here?
I felt it from the program as a whole, not necessarily like maybe on the field winning, but you could understand the importance of the day in every element of it. That was the one cool thing to see. I know there was a lot of questions on the visits in the past. I know we've had some infamous visits in the past couple of years, but to see their investment in what goes in to a visit weekend, into a student appreciation weekend, and just how it's all hands on deck, and the importance of every person's job in the building, all the way down to the recruiting directors that are walking around with the students and their family. Everyone understands, how big of an operation Ohio State football is, and how meaningful these visits are. So just seeing the attention to detail all the way down to the recruiting staff, that was great to see, knowing that like there has been an adjustment and everyone in that building understands the magnitude of the moment.
All right, that's good to hear. Hopefully, this will play out on the field. Everyone, go ahead and hit that like button. Give me your takes from Big Ten Media Days, even the UCLA Big Ten Media Days, which is the most popular one right now. Give me your take. Anything Coach said, anything that stood out to you. Shout out to Doug for that first like. Hit that like button, man. Okay, so something much talked about this offseason, the offensive line. So Ryan Day said the offensive line has been locked in. They know how important it is. I want to ask you, and he said the team also goes as the offensive line goes, which I think everyone's pretty much figured that's the one spot where if the offensive line is solid, this is a team that should very well be playing in the Natty, if not pretty damn close, unless something crazy happens. So I want to ask you, offensive line, where is your confidence with Justin Frye in this unit on the field? Now, we know recruiting might be a little different right now, but as far as on the field goes into the season, where's your confidence level with Justin Frye?
I guess if we're using the 1 to 7.7 scale for Buckeye BS, I mean, I'd probably put my confidence at 4.7. Like, I'm pretty confident. I mean, we saw the line develop over the course of last season. I don't think anybody's concerned with Justin Frye or the offensive line's play on the actual field or the development of these guys. It's the recruiting and developing the guys that he recruits. Most of these guys he didn't recruit. They've been here. They've been in the program. They're transfers from Alabama. So I don't really have any concerns with the current projected starting five. I mean, Seth had his snap issues at Alabama. Carson Hinsman, I mean, I think he might have been starting a year early. I think he'll be ready to go if he does end up taking over that right guard position. So I don't have too many concerns on the offensive line.
Yeah, I'll follow that with you. I think we had a giant space rewrap the season. We always do. And talked about just like Justin Frye and this offensive line was never really a reason why I felt like we didn't perform well last year. I mean, even the big game against Michigan, I thought they played pretty well. It was a couple of other things that may have cost us, but I think, kind of like when we talked about Tony Alford, when we get into games, the offensive line performs particularly well, and he gets the most out that team. And I wish, we could get more talent and recruit guys in, which is also another piece of it. But I felt like rolling in, that offensive line played well, and you pretty much return everybody. You bring in Seth from Alabama, so I think you'll have this group ready to play, and I'm pretty confident on Saturdays they will look pretty good. So I'm confident there. I got an interesting one for you. We all know about Zone 6, all right? We all know about the talent Zone 6 has and those guys across the board. I got this one from Ryan Day. Right? So hold your horses. Ryan Day said this. He said, Jaden Ballard, Bryson Rogers, and Kojo Antwi have to step up this fall for the Ohio State wide receiver room. That has to happen this preseason. First thing I want to ask you, because this kind of tells us we kind of know who the starters are. We could presume that. So these guys are kind of what's making this room actually Zone 6 with 6 people. Are you interested? We didn't hear Brandon Ennis in these 3. Does that mean he's in already and he's among that top 4? Or does that mean Brandon Ennis is behind these guys? I don't know. I need you to tell me.
The way I interpreted that was there's 4 guys that have been doing what they need to do and are going to see the field. And then there's 4 guys that someone needs to shake loose in case someone gets hurt or in case just to be ready. We need depth. We want to go deeper into our wide receiver rotation, but I don't think any of these guys have separated themselves from the pack to really assert themselves for that 5th role. I think that you can pretty much write in right now that you're going to see a ton of Emeka, Carnell, Brandon, and obviously Jeremiah Smith. So I think that's a message to the other guys that, hey, look, you watch the 23 class come in here and insert themselves. You watch Jeremiah Smith just come in the 24 class, and he's already in the starting lineup. Your time is now. You guys need to make an effort and get on the field if you guys are going to play here. And I feel like that was more of the message to them of, hey, there's not much room left. if you want to get on the field, you know how tight these snaps are, especially once we get into the season, how much they tighten up that rotation. So if you're already out of the 4 deep in the Ohio State wide receiver rotation, you really need to make a name for yourself if you want to see the field.
Now, are you saying that because you are paid, bought, and contractually obligated by SFE to include include Brandon Ennis in that top 4?
Absolutely not. Brandon Ennis, if Emeka Egbuka was not back, Brandon Ennis would automatically be your starting slot receiver. I think it's awesome to see Brandon back and competing to be in that 4 deep after, you know what I mean? We've seen in years past when guys return for the senior year that weren't maybe expected to. Some guys leave, like we saw Jamo depart after Chris Olave returned. So just to see Brandon locked in and, you know what I mean, committed to the team and ready to compete for a spot, and I think he's going to be out there getting a lot of minutes. So that was not SFE propaganda. I believe Brandon Ennis will be a large part of this offense this year.
All right, good to hear. Yeah, we seen Jaden Ballard a little bit in the spring. He rep with the ones. I just think that's a guy with speed that you just got to find a way to have him do something. I don't know if it's kick returning. I don't know if it's catching screens. You got to have him do something. Bryson Rogers is a guy this spring where when he came back, and this was not just from you, but a lot of people coming out of spring that like he's better than a lot of people thought he would be at this stage in time, and he looks ready to go. So I'm interested to see him do something, especially in these first 5 games we had before the road really starts to get difficult. And Kojo Answe is a guy that people didn't know if he would ever play here. I mean, I remember watching Kojo's high school film, and I'm like, this guy can play. Like, I understand Zone 6 is good, but that doesn't mean his talent level is that much lower than everyone else's. So hopefully for him, he stuck it out. He's been around. He's the last one left of that class. I just want to see him get on the field and get opportunity because I don't even know if he can play yet. So it'll be interesting to see him get on the field and see if he can make some stuff happen. So that's for Zone 6. We'll see there. So Caleb Downs, the man, the myth, the legend. So we got our video from Ryan Day on Caleb Downs. So let's get to that, and then we'll talk about him right after.
Returning is certainly on the plate, and we'll see about the running back situation, but he has taken a few snaps, but we're going to try to solidify him as a safety first, returner second, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, so you heard Ryan Day say it right there.
I blame you immediately. You've been asking for defenders to return punts, and now we got Caleb Downs playing running back. Be careful what you wish for.
Even farther. So Ryan Day said, Caleb Downs is a safety first, returner second, running back third. So my first question about Caleb Downs, do you want him as a punt returner for this team?
No, not at all. We have Brandon Ennis, we have Bryson Rogers, we have some of the most talented wide receivers and running backs in the country on our team, some of the most dynamic people in the country with the ball in their hand. I don't want to see our star safety playing running back and taking unnecessary hits. I want to see him delivering hits to people and staying as healthy as possible. I know the running back depth is a concern and probably one of the main reasons why this is even taken seriously at all, and they're still pushing this that he may play running back, just because I feel like they're that concerned about the depth. And I know we have depth at safety with Malik Hartford back there, but I don't think the risk is worth the reward here.
Okay, another pop question, and then we'll get back to that one. But is this just part of the Caleb Downs Heisman hype train? Like, Ohio State, one, has not really marketed their players, and it's been well documented. We don't win a lot of awards at Ohio State. You think about BIA, all the corners that walk through that room. It's no Thorpes. Think about the wide receivers. Marv finally got a Biletnikoff, after we probably had 3 of the top 5 best receivers in the country.
Should have had 2, honestly.
Yeah. So they don't win a lot of awards. Is this just to get Caleb Downs, at least get him a Thorpe, let alone try to get him in the Heisman? Do you think it's part of that hype?
No, it's hype. It's to get him to Ohio State, and he's here. So I don't know why we're still playing into this. I think it's maybe to build the trust of like, hey, we told you can play running back here, and like we're not going to shut that down immediately. I'm just like hoping like this conversation like dissipates once the season starts, because I'd much rather see like could you imagine the Buckeye reaction on Twitter? It's, the fourth quarter of Akron. We're up 54-0, and Caleb Downs has been out of the game for an entire quarter at safety and has just been sitting on the bench. And they're like, you know what, kid, grab your helmet. Pound the rock here for this last drive and take 15 hits as we run out the clock against Akron. Like, bro, put James Peoples out there. Let one of these young guys get some carries. I don't care. Get one of the walk-ons. Prayers up to TC Caffey. I know he's hurt, but we haven't reduced the scholarships down to 105 yet. We got plenty of walk-ons. I'm sure there's a couple kids walking around on campus that'll tell you about their 1,000-yard season in high school. Go get him. Find me a running back, something. I don't want to see Caleb Downs out there.
Yeah, that's too funny. Yeah, I'm with you. As far as punt returner goes, there's so many guys. Jermaine Matthews is a guy that comes to mind where he can return punts. He's good with the ball in his hand. Bryson Rogers, he's over there been collecting dust. Noah Rogers left because you wouldn't give him a touch. And you watch his high school tape returning punts. I'm like, this dude looks like the best returner on the team walking in. Mylan Graham walks in. There's just so many guys who can return punts. Chat, let me know who would you like to see as punt returner this season, and you can throw kick returner in there. And I have another question for you. So this is 3. Last question on Caleb Downs. Is he the best player on this team?
Is Caleb Downs the best player on the team?
Yes.
No.
It's not. Who is the best player on this team if it's not Caleb Downs?
Jeremiah Smith. Y'all gonna quit playing, bro.
As I said, paid, bought, and contractually obligated by SME. Y'all know I was lying.
Yeah, man. If I had to rank the top players on the team, it would definitely be Jeremiah Smith, Cardell Tate, Brandon Ennis.
Okay.
Followed by Aaron Nolan. Shout out SFE.
Oh man. The chat, let me know.
The chat seems to think that Mylan Graham could return punts. I'm always concerned about integrating someone with such a big role because I know that I feel like Ryan Day would take a secured punt and with no return yards and 0 muffs all year over 10 yards and 1 fumble. So I mean, having a true freshman come in, one that is arriving during the summer with a role that important where ball security is probably the most important thing that they're asking for out there on the field. I don't know if he'll get involved year 1, but if he does come in, make an impact early, maybe they do try to find a way to get him on the field, and that's a role that they find a way to use Mylan Graham in. I know Q's big concern there is Mylan Graham's pretty fast. Might be too fast for punt return.
That definitely is my concern. It's one of those positions, especially with kick and punt. I mean, we've seen Emeka do it. We see Travion. They put him back there very early before he really played consistently. Is that's where you throw your young players and they have a role on this team. They get involved. They're not worried about people talking you should be playing more. So I'm with you, chat. I hope he gets in there. But
real quick, I want to throw this up here from our guy Doug. My buddy's kid rushed for 4,500 yards and was offered a walk-on opportunity at the. So let's hope bro stays in shape. Not too many natty lights during the first semester. And if the Buckeyes need to call on bro, he can come in before Caleb Downs has.
Yeah, take some snaps away from Caleb Downs. There we go. Tell my kids about it. All right. So Emeka Egbuka, this is what he had to say when they talked about guys coming back. He said, guys all did their own process and evaluation and all came to the same conclusion. You can't leave here without gold pants, and the talent does not matter on paper. Michigan is going to be a tough game. So first of all, let me get your reaction to those, that everybody came to the same conclusion. Let's not all go to the draft. Let's come back for these gold pants. What does it mean for these guys?
I was going to say, you can't leave here without your gold pants. Ask Terrell Pryor because he left after selling his.
You made this joke last season.
Hey, I agree with the sentiment, and I'm glad that these guys feel the need to come back and stamp their legacy. I mean, there was so much hype around this recruiting class. I mean, I don't know if you guys listened to Buckeye Talk back in the day, and Doug Maurice used to talk about this recruiting class like it was going to feed families and win multiple national championships. This is back when, Quinn Ewers was thought to be the quarterback this season or the prior season. And this team hasn't beat the team up north. We don't have a natty to show for it. No Big Ten championship. I feel like a lot of the expectations and goals that these kids had when they got to Ohio State outside of their draft prospect is to win these things, and they haven't been able to get it done. So I'm not surprised that these guys decided to come back, and I'm glad to hear that, there's a lot of questions around that game and the team up north, and are the Buckeyes taking it seriously in years past? And it seems like this game really means something to these guys, that this is such an important factor in their decision to come back.
Yeah, I said him at that. So I have a question for you in the chat. How much does Emeka, just by himself, Emeka, have to prove this season? Now, we talked about him. He was the number one receiver coming in. Marv's already going. He's returning for his senior year, which I would have to believe with Zone 6 was not a part of the initial plan. We talked about him being hurt at times, talked about him dropping passes in the Team Up North game. How much does he have to prove this season?
Well, I know you asked the chat, but me here with the microphone, I would say nothing. He has nothing to prove, because anyone that has seen Emeka healthy knows what he's capable of doing. And I'm not making the same mistake that I made with Denzel Burke. I questioned Denzel a ton his sophomore year after having a spectacular freshman season, and he was hurt. He was battling through a lot, and he came back and proved to be the player that we knew he could be last season. And I feel like we're going to see the same thing from Emeka this season. A lot of people have forgot how dynamic Emeka could be. I mean, you saw the flashes in the spring game, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people why he was the number one recruit, or the number one wide receiver recruit in the country in his class. And I really think he's going to make a name for himself this year and prove people the wide receiver he can be when he's actually healthy.
I'm a little bit on the other side. I feel like Emeka does have some stuff to prove. It just comes with the reputation of being a wide receiver at Ohio State and in the Big Ten. You should be returning to your fourth year the best receiver, not only in the Big Ten, that should be submitted, but in the nation. You should be the best guy to come in.
He's on pace to be the leading wide receiver of all time at Ohio State.
But there's no year where you would have been like, yeah, Emeka's the best guy on the team, or he's the number one option. Think about it. You could go 4 years, be the all-time leading in records, and no one ever thought you were the best receiver on the team. Like, don't you think?
I mean, KJ Hill led in receptions, but he wasn't the best receiver on the team, but he had a huge role and impact.
I mean, I understand, but that's two different arguments. Sure, he never left. He was the JT Barrett program. He was always here. But I think Emeka, with his high ceiling, we know he's talented, got to be healthy, but really should be out there like he's a dude, and he should be out there like playing at a first round pick level.
So you don't feel like, are you confident that he will coming into this season if you had to predict? So you're saying he has something to prove to you.
Yeah.
What are your expectations coming into this season based off of what you've seen from Emeka? Do you feel like he has it in him to do it this year?
I feel like we've seen it in spurts. We all know consistency is the best thing. Marv did it week in, week out. Even when the other receivers weren't playing well, we go up to Penn State. That's his sophomore year, and it's like, okay, no, he's a dude. Even though everyone else isn't playing well, they're having a rough game, he still stands out. I think Emeka has to follow that line of week in, week out. He's got to be, maybe Jeremiah Smith will make a freak play in there. We know the other SFE guys are going to show out, but he's got to be that guy of like, we need something. He's open. He's creating separation. He's doing the things he needs to do to put his stamp on his game. So I think if he can do that throughout the season, he's where he should be. I think he will. I have no doubts that he won't be, but I think coming into this season, coming back for your fourth year, saying what he said, you do have something to prove.
Absolutely. I mean, you put that ranking in front of him, and especially, we had back-to-back number one receivers in their class. And I mean, Julian Fleming, we watched 4 years of it, and now he's at Penn State. I would hope that, the following year with Emeka Egbuka the year after, that we would see a little bit more production from the number one wide receiver in the country. And I think we're going to get that this year. I think that, like, with all of the hype and all the jokes that we make about Jeremiah Smith being the best player, wide receiver in the country, whatever we want to go with there. But I think that Emeka is going to remind people this year that, like, hey, I was a top prospect. I was the number one wide receiver in the country, just like Jeremiah Smith, and I have something to prove. And I feel like you see that with his offseason approach. He seems very confident. He seems healthy, very fit, ready to go for the season. So I'm excited to see what a healthy in shape Emeka looks like this season.
Yeah. I'm Jeremiah Smith Sr. That's who I am. That's how I should be walking back. Okay, so we got a graphic from Denzel Burke. If you want to throw that up there, he was at Big Ten Media Days as well. So let's read that. But chat, give me your takes on Emeka real quick while I read this off. So Denzel Burke said, "I didn't come back for no BS." That's a great just opening statement line.
No, that's kind of messed up. Buckeye BS is back every Sunday, and I need you all to show up for that every Sunday. I know Denzel Burke doesn't watch the show. Apparently, he decided to address us at Media Day, but I am here for the BS. Every Sunday, Buckeye BS. Make sure you pull up me, Mike, Cam, Q, every Sunday, 10 a.m. So I know Denzel Burke, he don't rock with Buckeye BS, but Buckeye BS every Sunday. I need y'all to tune in.
That's actually insane. What Denzel Burke actually said was, "We're here to win, and we're going to need everybody. We've got to hold each other accountable, and every game is a matchup game this year." So I don't have too many questions on Denzel Burke. I don't got to question him coming back and balling. Now we know what Denzel Burke is gonna do. My question is this: so
why does he hate our show on Sunday?
Yeah, and Denzel Burke, watch our show, man. We know you didn't come back before, but it's a good time. So my question is this: for this class, this 2021 recruiting class that we've talked about it ad nauseum, Mike Hall was really the only guy to leave. He was the only guy to pop out early. Everyone came back. Okay. My question is this for you, Ron. Is the amount of guys that came back a reflection on the program's desire to beat Michigan? Or does it reflect not maximizing the guys in this 2021 class? Because a lot of guys came back. They may have not got the draft stock they wanted. They've been here for 3 years. We had like 5 guys in the top 11, top 12 in that class. So which one is it for you? Is it these guys just really want to beat Michigan that bad? I mean, in the sake of Denzel Burke, we know he could have been a second-round pick, maybe pushing for that first and be out. But there's a lot of guys around here who are all back being seniors. So which one is it for you? Want to beat Michigan, or they didn't maximize their talent like they should have at this point in time?
Yes. It's both.
Okay, so it's both.
It has to be both of those things, because it's hard to say they didn't maximize this 2021 class, because when we signed that class, I don't think anyone looked at Denzel Burke as a 3-star recruit, former wide receiver, and said, you know what? This guy's going to start as a true freshman, be serviceable for 2 years, and then by his 4th year, be a first-round pick. JTT, another guy who has been on the field since he arrived in Columbus. I mean, he was a late arriver on campus. You know, his recruitment dragged out a little bit longer than a lot of people anticipated. So people thought like maybe it might be one of those situations where you get to school late and you don't play. It's almost like a red shirt type of year. And they're like, please save the run game, young freshman. So, I mean, I feel like these guys have found ways to contribute. Michigan has absolutely played a role in it. I think a lot of these guys could have went this year. They may have not have been exactly where they wanted to be drafted, but I think they were all within a round and a half of where we maybe thought they would be. So I do think Michigan probably played a bigger factor than saying that they weren't exactly developed to their full potential, because I feel like a lot of those guys are getting there, and I feel like they're scratching the surface. So even if they're not there, in the people that we may be considering not at their full potential, I do think they're going to find a way to reach it this year. And if it didn't happen in 3 years, didn't happen in 3 years. If it results in a natty and in a higher draft grade, I think it'll all play out in the long run. So I think it leans more to the Michigan and feeling like they have unfinished business. I know a lot of these guys, again, they came in the same class. Obviously, they have that bond. They've been on visits together. You know what I mean? They were the young guys together. They've been through these 3 losses together. They had a lot of expectations, and they've had a lot of negative experiences here at Ohio State. And for them to pull through that this year, I think that'll be a huge moment for that class. And I feel like it'll kind of rewrite history on the way people view that class, because if they were to leave after this past year, I think a lot of people would look on that class as a disappointment because of the talent that was around that class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a little bit of both. Guys did have pretty good draft stock. I don't know if it's where they wanted to be, like you said, but it's another chance to come back and maximize that. I mean, I'm happy to have everyone back. hopefully here they'll be able to do both. And I think this year making a deep run and you win a natty, guys will have really no questions. And you talk about Zach Harrison going into his fourth year. We talked the other DNs like going to fourth year. He had a very solid year, ended up as one of the top rounds of a draft pick. And nobody's going to say like, Zach Harrison never played well because he really did his last year. So the DNs have a chance to do that. Donovan Jackson, I know people have criticized him a little bit. I mean, he's a lineman, so he's back for his fourth year. Trey's been hurt at times. Emeka's been hurt at times. People just wanted to talk about those guys who are really in the top 15. So I think they got a chance to do both here, and I think they'll play well, but I agree with you. I think it's a little bit of both. So that's what I have for Big Ten Media Days. Everyone go ahead and like that video, hit that sub button. We're trying to get those subs up. So somebody who doesn't know this great morning show is around there, let them know we are here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. for some people, earlier than that for others, but we are here. So
shout out my guy Zona Buck, waking up early.
Yeah, hey, Zona Buck, guy, shout out to you wherever you are. All right, we want to do some recruiting talk. So, Ron, I will pass it to you. What are we talking about with recruiting?
Well, I feel like we're going to upset some people when we talk about recruiting because they're going to be like, you guys are so spoiled. So we're going to set the stage with, yes, this is a very entitled, spoiled conversation. The Buckeyes currently at number one, the number one recruiting class in the country. We get to this point at least once a year where we feel like, are we going to make that push? Are we really going to sign the number one class? And I mean, with some of the remaining prospects out there, especially a guy like David Sanders, it definitely seems like something that is attainable. But in years past, something that we used to hear from other fan bases is, man, your recruiting ranking and class ranking is propped up by wide receivers. This year, the Buckeyes only have one receiver in the top 100 in their current class. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Brian Hartline's wide receiver class this year, with the Buckeyes sitting at number one without their normal Lamborghini position filled up like they have in years past.
Yeah, so I actually, so far, I mean, I think we need probably close on another guy or so, but I actually really like this wide receiver class. It feels like a change of pace. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so the guys we have. So Desi Jones, guy from New Jersey, slot receiver. I mean, you cut on the tape, and I don't know where the rankings are, but
in the 200s.
Yeah, he's probably 200. This guy, he looks like a dude, man. I mean, you talk about prototype slot receiver. That's one for Brian Hartline. He looks like a dude. Obviously, we got Quincy Porter out in New Jersey, who is a 6'4", just dominant physical prospect.
Do you think Kyle screaming Jersey in the locker room is why we've had this Jersey renaissance in recruiting?
Of course, that's where it comes from. I mean, I think we need a more. Georgia is heavily in New Jersey. I think we need to hit that state more. That's just my opinion. But Quincy Porter is he's a dude, man. So we have him, and then Bogpen Miller out of Ohio. You're talking about another 6'4", 180 prospect. Cam talked about him a long time ago as far as getting into this class, and he plays quarterback right now. But if you cut on the tape, you're just like, dang, like this guy has all the athleticism to mold. So I like where Brian Hartline is. Now, we know in this day and age of NIL, I mean, we heard what the top receivers are going for and the schools like it's a high bid. But I think Brian Hartline has took the time to say, okay, these are the guys I can get. They're extremely talented, and this is a chance to prove, like, okay, I don't just bring in the top receiver, and, of course, Jeremiah Smith is good. We all knew that. No matter where he went, he could have been at Colorado. He'd still be balling out. So these are a chance to show that I can get these guys in, I can develop, and these guys here can really become top-round draft picks, even though they didn't come in with the biggest name in the class. So I like where this class is.
Do you think the attrition that we've seen in the wide receiver room due to the transfer portal and how competitive that room is now slightly changed Hartline's approach to recruiting this cycle, or do you think it was more just misses? I mean, it's not like we avoided the top five-star guys at receiver. We had Vernell Brown on campus multiple times. We had Jamie French on campus multiple times. DeCorian Moore made multiple visits to Ohio State. Both guys that at various points in time, the Buckeyes felt fairly confident about. The Buckeyes strike out on all three. Do you think this was more reactionary to the miss of those three, or do you think this is some philosophical change in approach as far as trying to maintain that room and avoid less attrition with what we've seen in the portal in years past?
I honestly think it's just opportunity. Now, we know when you have the big time receiver, and Brian Hartline has played a dangerous game, his entire time of recruiting where he's locked onto these guys from Florida and Texas and these big time states. And you just know how hard that is. But I'm thinking he's taking Bogpen Miller. We talked about him, this guy who wasn't really even Raider or PB. He only had a Boston College offer. He said, I'm taking him regardless. I'm throwing him the offer, and I don't care if Vernell Brown or DeCorian Moore haven't committed yet. Like, I'm riding with this dude, Quincy Porter, out there. Desi Jones out there. He took him very early too, and the guys were like, "Well, if you're going to fit all these guys in the class, like, how are you? Where does he fit in there?" So I think he just took the opportunity that I have dudes in my area who have the talent level of those guys. They may not be as polished, they may not quite have the production yet, they may not be all over 247 Sports, but these are guys who can come in. We know it's going to be very hard to play early. At Ohio State, it's damn near impossible to play early, even if you are the number 3 overall pick. You may not play early. So we know it takes time. So it's guys who come in, develop. They may not have the big name, but they have the talent of the guys who are the number 1s or the number 5s in the class.
Absolutely. We got a message from our guy Cam. 26 class is loaded, and I think this is also something that's playing a factor into the recruiting approach and something that may be keeping recruits away from Ohio State this year. I mean, there are 3 monsters in the 26 class of receiver that are all already being recruited by Ohio State and we already have Chris Henry Jr., the number 1 wide receiver in the class, committed. You have Caden Dixon-Wyatt from SFE, another one, and oh my God, it's completely slipping my name. There's another 5-star receiver on SFE right now. He's the number 1 wide receiver in Florida right now, and that's another Ohio State lean. And I think that might be something that other kids are paying attention to as well, that you have Chris Henry Jr., Jabari Brady. There we go, Cam. Jabari Brady, he went absolutely nuclear in the national championship OT7 tournament, multiple touchdown games. So those are 3 guys that if I'm in the 25 class, I'm looking behind me like, all right, they may be telling me I'm the greatest now. What happens when Chris Henry Jr. gets here? What happens when Jabari Brady gets here? What happens when Caden Dixon-Wyatt gets on campus? Those 3 guys, if Brian Hartline is able to follow up the 25 class with those 3, I feel like the 25 class is going to be looking over their shoulder for 4 straight years. So I definitely think the 26 class is definitely going to be playing a factor in there as well.
Yeah, it could be a strong possibility. Now, I'm never afraid of Ohio State just taking a chance on a freak show. So I will take as many 6'4", 180, 200-pound guys running 4.4s that we can get. They can all line up for me. You know how I am.
Absolutely. So we talked about Brian Hartline in this recruiting cycle. Do you have an MVP for this recruiting cycle?
I mean, if we're talking about as a recruiter, it's definitely got to be James Laurinaitis and what he's done at linebacker. I mean, we've talked about it for a while. That's one of the positions in the former club, probably since the CJ Higgs class, where it's like, we getting these guys, but I don't know where they're going to fall. I don't know if we're going to have to hit the portal later. We'll see how the development has to go. But I think he has, as far as recruiting, he's got to be the MVP of this class. He's got dudes. He's got a solid 3 in his class right now. So I am super excited where the linebacker class is right now. He would be my MVP as far as recruiting.
I'm going to give it to multiple people, and I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's going to the entire Sanchez. It's going to the entire Sanchez family. How could you pick just one? I think they have been more invested in this recruiting class than the staff themselves. Devin and both of his parents have both been out here pounding the pavement for the Buckeyes and really out there selling the Buckeye word to everyone. And you love to see it. Every year we talk about the captain Buckeye role, someone that's in the class early that takes on the responsibility of, hey, you could trust me. You can know that I'm locked in. I'm going to be here, and I'm really pushing to build this class. And their entire family has completely embraced that role, and you love to see it out there. And it's definitely ruffled the feathers of some other fan bases. And all I got to say is, sell your school like we do and make families and kids love it to the point that they want everyone else to love it the same way that they do. And I couldn't be more thankful to that family and what they've done for this program and how much that they've helped push the brand of this program.
Yeah, I have no complaints there. All the props to them. And Tim Walton is he's working against himself here, where I just expect Tim Walton to deliver a lights out class. And that's why I did not give him MVP. I just favor him. I mean, obviously having the 2 top corners in class, you're not doing better than that. I would say for James Laurinaitis, it's just really we've suffered for it. And this was Tim Walton a couple of years ago. We've suffered with the misses we've had in the class and not quite getting the guys we wanted as fans. And for James Laurinaitis to go into Florida and go into Texas and pull some of the top players out of that class for that state, really just out of nowhere, where even their writers are like, how is he doing this? Like that is a big time statement. And that just changes the trajectory of where linebacker recruiting goes. So that's why I gave it to him. But OG Walt, he's always up there for MVP, and the Sanchez family. Shout out to them. Shout out to all the Buckeye families that are just joining, because they've done an excellent job on the trail, and they're fun follows on Twitter. So make sure you do that.
So everyone saw the graphic. We've talked about the MVP.
I knew the fun had to stop somewhere.
Well, we were positive for 41 minutes, but I'm sorry we have to call everyone into the HR office. It's time. We got to put our boy Justin Frye on a performance improvement plan. Like, bro, sit down. We got to talk. What is going on with this David Sanders recruitment?
Well, I will start with this. I've talked more probably offensive line recruiting than I have over years past. This summer, Chris Drew earlier in the year, of it's very rough when you back yourself into a wall where you're almost having to land the number 1 lineman in the class to supposedly keep your job. So I'm real confident in what I've heard from David Sanders and his recruitment. I mean, I know Nebraska's out there. I mean, if we lose a guy in Nebraska, that's big worries. I know some.
Whoa! It's happened before.
In different circumstances.
Anyone recognize this guy? You ever see that face before? You ever see him in a golf cart at the spring game?
Man, I saw him for a quick second before he walked out the door. I feel like I've seen him somewhere. I can't pin how. I think I was in Georgia at one time and I seen him walking around. So
did he have on a dog's hoodie?
But yeah, this is a big time recruit, man. I mean, we got to land David Sanders, and just for his offensive line class, I mean, we had so many targets out there that we felt good about, and it seems like almost none of them wanted to come here. I don't know what it is with Ohio State and linemen, but one, it's holding back our class. Like, this is a year we can really have the number 1 recruiting class finally. But as far as talent goes, you got to continue to stack this room. So Justin Frye almost at this point hasn't landed David Sanders. Maybe get a couple more guys on the season. I don't know, man. Go flip somebody. We got NIL. We got good stuff going for us. Go flip somebody, man.
You made a great point. You look at the recruiting class and you're like, man, if Justin Frye would wake up, this could be a number 1 class. And shout out to Carter Lowe, a huge get in this class, and I don't want to undersell what his commitment means to this class. But at the same time, we only have 2 offensive linemen signed, and they're both from Ohio. And I don't know when the standard for Ohio State coaches in recruiting became just land the guys in Ohio. Like, that is a given. That you have to do that. And then from there, it's about building and expanding on that. So to see us only having 2 commits and they're both in the class, that's kind of concerning.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Go ahead. Javon McFadden, another guy from Maryland who we feel like we're inside track on. I mean, really right now, Missouri has a better offensive line class than we do. They're landing guys. And I'm like, heck is that coach doing? Like this guy's performing. So it's just the fact that you got to lock in on your guys. I spoke about it a lot. There's so many good, talented linemen in the Midwest and the area. I mean, Georgia, Shabbat in New Jersey, Alabama, they're in Wisconsin, they're in Michigan. They're all over the place. It's just we don't have to necessarily go to the South to get, big-time linemen. There's a lot of talented guys just in the Midwest, and for that, you have to dominate the Midwest. So I just think he has to change his microscope. He has to start looking more in the Midwest, and then maybe I'll go chase a guy in Texas or Florida. But you can't be rocking with a guy in SEC country and being like, okay, this is my last hope to land this guy right in the middle of the Wolves' cave. So that's just where I sit with it.
So you mentioned the standard and people wanting him to land a top recruit from outside the state. Do you feel like he's recruiting for his job? Because I feel like the sentiment around Justin Frye's recruiting and the frustration around it seems very similar to Perry Eliano in the years past. I can remember us all huddling up on a stream to see KJ Bolden not choose Ohio State. And I feel like we could be headed towards something similar with David Sanders. Do you feel like that is even a fair standard to place on a coach? Like, hey, sign the top tackle in the country or get out of here?
I mean, do I think it's fair? No, I think performance on the field is always going to be number one, and what you get out of that kind of determines your job. But as Ryan Day has said, the president, we've had 2 guys walk out the door that on Saturdays, their guys played just fine. We never looked at the safety room or the running back room like, oh, they're holding us back and we didn't win a natty because of them. But those guys were also getting dinged on the recruiting trail and not bringing in guys. So if you're going to do that with them, you can't start to change it for Justin Frye. Eventually, he's going to have to recruit. He's going to have to bring in talent, or it's going to be like, well, why does he still have a job? I mean, we have a lot of guys who can have these guys perform on the field fine, but we need guys who can recruit inside the door. So if you're going to do that, I mean, you got to pick one or the other. You can't change it for Justin Frye and not for the other 2.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't technically be changing it for Justin Frye. We do have a precedence for not recruiting on our staff. We had Parker Fleming stealing money for a couple of years, and he didn't recruit anyone. But before we get out of here and get our day started, we did get one message from David Sanders that we want to play for Buckeye Nation before we head out.
Thank you, David. Keeping the confidence going. Hey, Buckeye lock. That's all I need to see.
Buckeye lock. You know what I mean? Go Big Red. I think maybe he's talking about me.
Yeah, right. We just call it Scarlet.
Exactly. But, man, we appreciate everybody tuning in to the Buckeye Roast, man. It is great to be back in front of the mic. It stinks waking up, but we get started here and see all you guys in the chat, and I'm wide awake. I know my work probably loves it. I show up to work 10 times more awake now because I'm here with you guys in the morning. Q, let the people know where they can find you.
As you know, people, I am not hard to find. Good Lord. It's
Fine.
hard to find. People are quitting on Twitter. Find Johnson both Instagram and TikTok. And I am here 8 a.m. every morning. I also do movies at minor league film. So, if you like movies, go ahead. Just come over there, hang out. Anyway, yeah, that's where I'm easy to find. Ron, where can people find you at?
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2Ts. That's 2_TES. You can find me here weekdays at 8 a.m. for the Buckeye Roast. Sundays with my guys, Cam, Mike, Q, obviously, for Buckeye BS. And then the college football pregame show once the season starts over on Menace with our guy, Chris Drew. If you want to connect with us, also you can find us in the Discord in the link below. We're in there hanging out all the time, playing video games, private spaces, all that good stuff. So if you want to pull up, wait, what? Oh yeah, I forget every day. You're gonna have to like hold up a sign like you're at a Brazilian steakhouse. Like, don't forget the podcast. We are on all audio platforms, wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Write us a review. Say something good. Send us a question. If you want a question answered here on the show, put it in the review, and we will be sure to get to that on the show. We appreciate everyone for pulling up for this episode of the Buckeye Roast, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Go Bucks and OH.
Ayo.
Yeah.